So Ben's having an issue right now. No, I don't see that. So I send links again. So.
Thank you. Oh. Well, I have a hearing problem, but I also have really bad allergies right now. I don't know if you can tell by the way I'm talking. My ears are like, I feel like I'm talking in a can, you know, like it's like
I feel like it is kind of humid out.
humid and yeah.
I'm gonna go on a walk.
Kathy, can you hear me?
I hear them. I'm here.
Checking. How about you, Sue?
Sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay. Just waiting. We had to send updated links to a couple of people. Eric, are you there, Eric?
Yeah, I'm here. I can't seem to get my video to work, but I'm here.
Okay. It's like Bill Wadika's on as well. I thought I saw you. There's Bill.
This is you guys, I think.
Bill, you want to unmute? Okay.
Oh,
All right, you ready, Mike?
Yeah.
All right, Ben's not here. All right. Zoning Board of Review is now in session. First thing I will do is I will go through a roll call of members in attendance. Our board is here. Mr. Furell. Furell is not joined. Ms. Pavlakis? Kathleen, you have to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Hello?
Yeah, Kathleen Pavlakis?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Eric Raposa?
I'm here.
All right. Ms. Horowitz?
Present.
Mr. Ladika?
the present.
All right, and the chairman, James Knott, is also present. Mr. Borden and I are in the council chambers. Okay, so the first item on the agenda, I am just going to present the May 21st minutes for approval. I know some others were sent yesterday and today, but I have not had an opportunity to read them. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Mr. Reposer has made a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Borden has seconded. Mr. Borden in favor of? Yes. Ms. Pavlakis?
Approve. I approve.
Thank you. Chairman votes to approve. Ms. Horowitz?
I approve.
Okay, Mr. Ladika?
I approve.
All right, the minutes are approved. Okay, the first item on the agenda is petition by Christopher and Deborah Burnett of 415 Sea Meadow Drive, seeking a special use permit for apparently an already existing solar array at their property on tax assessors map 42A lot 55, 415 Sea Meadow Drive. Are the Burnett's on?
Yes, we're here.
Yes.
Could you please explain to the board exactly why you're here? Apparently the system is already built, how this came about.
I'm prepared to tell you.
I'm going to swear you in, so Mike, could you bring them up on the screen, please? Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Burnett, you swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
And just for the record, I do, for the record, ask you to give your full names and addresses to Barbara, our secretary here. She's recording.
Okay, Deborah Burnett, 415 Sea Meadow Drive, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, 02871.
Thank you.
Christopher Burnett, 415 Sea Meadow Drive, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. This is a second residence for both of us.
Okay.
We are residents of New Hampshire and we are coming in from New Hampshire.
Okay. So apparently you've installed a solar array on your property. And now you've come before the board after it's installed seeking a special use permit. Is that correct?
Correct. We do have a brief overview statement that might answer a lot of your questions front, because we realize this probably isn't, it's probably a little more complicated issue than normally seen for a special use permit. That's okay?
Okay. So why
Right.
don't you walk us through it then?
Okay.
Okay, I have 17 years of direct experience in renewable and wind and solar energy. I have a BS from the U.S. Naval Academy and MBA in finance and a long career in the high-tech industry. Most recently, I've been an active investor in renewable energy startups and a president of startups. In 2014, I installed a small off-grid solar system, 7.6 kW, roughly equivalent to the size of what's at 415 Sea Meadow Drive, on my house in New Hampshire. During that process, I had to fire 2 solar installers, both of them certified by the state of New Hampshire because they were incapable of putting in my designated off-grid battery-backed solar system. I did everything wrong. I had to take them to court. I got my money that was uncontested. The town of Tuftonboro, where we are zooming you from, is where this system was installed. The town supported me in the effort to put it on my dock because I live on a fully wooded 1.8 acre lot. There's no place compatible with the solar system. My dock is the only place. It's the only one at the time that had ever been put on a dock. The town of Tuftonboro, as the town of Rhode Island, when I put my system in, had no solar ordinance and deferred on all matters to the state of New Hampshire, similar to what the state of Rhode Island has sent executive orders down to all 39 states that the issue of solar ordinance, 39 towns ordinances is a matter of state issue because they regulate the utility. Anyway, the building inspector was supportive here, required no permit. The system was installed, brought up to speed. The co-op, which is the grid operator here, was visited multiple times, assisted making sure it was done. I got my 85% production. I got a grant of 3.5K from the state of New Hampshire with a congratulations, I'm glad you did a nice job, and $2.5 thousand from utility. My experience in Rhode Island has been quite different. I want to bring to your attention the fact that in January of 2020, the state of Rhode Island, which has always had much more aggressive renewable portfolio standards, which is requirements for renewable energy to feed the grid, Governor Raimondo signed an executive order committing Rhode Island to power 100% of the renewable electricity by the end of the decade. Her executive order directs the state offices of energy resources to conduct an economic energy market analysis and develop actionable policies and programs to reach this goal. They have failed in the state of Rhode Island to meet the goals that they've set out in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18 in New Hampshire, where they're supportive. They did not. In 2016, I commenced study and I talked to 8 different installers to try to get someone to install an off-grid, battery-backed, small 7.2 kW solar system on my house, a whole house behind the meter system. None of those would install it on my taper sawn wood shake roof, none. All of them demurred and said a wood shake roof, which is generally the standard for the neighborhood, Sea Meadow Drive or Sea Meadow Farms, they would not put it on there. All of them pointed out that the east-west face of the roof was incompatible with trying to meet the state requirement of 80% performance from the solar system. You need to face south and you need to be at 43 degrees. Several of them took solar readings at a certain location in the yard, which is exactly where the solar rack was installed, which is a ballasted ground mount solar rack with 22 solar panels on it. The quotes for a non-battery backed system, which is a much less expensive system, were between $35,000 and $40,000. These were not compatible with return on investment that was satisfactory. The cost of only one bidder who would do an off-grid system for me, which would allow me to operate whether the grid was connected or not. In other words, when the power goes out, my power stays on and stays on indefinitely. My house is powered by the sun. Only one would do it. He said he gave an estimate of $40,000 for it, and this would not give a reasonable return on investment. I note that I am an MBA in finance and I worked at KPMG or Pete Marwick for years, so I know cost and analysis a great deal. So I proceeded then to research what the town of Portsmouth had for solar ordinances and found that I walked into a very difficult situation. Turns out that the town had no ordinances, and that in fact, the state had directed all of the towns, because they were having so much difficulty meeting the renewable portfolio standard, to stand down and to not interfere with the process of certifying, regulating for the fire department, for electrical purposes, solar systems. Specifically, the letter came out in January of 2018. It said municipal buildings zoning officers are required to defer to the state on these matters, renewable energies, and their use, their forms, and their rules. I would note that 16 months ago, I submitted a solar permit to the state of Rhode Island to the town of Portsmouth per a request by the town. It's a 50-page document, required only 3 in the state of New Hampshire. It has never been responded to.
Mr. Burnett, can I interrupt you right from there?
Yes.
Okay, we're talking the town of Portsmouth, state of Rhode Island.
Yes.
Whatever happened in New Hampshire has no relevance whatsoever on this petition, none whatsoever.
I'm only.
So if you could just keep along the lines of the state of Rhode Island and Portsmouth, I would greatly appreciate it.
I will now stay only in Portsmouth, but my point in telling you this was to prove that I have the bona fides to actually do self-installation as a homeowner, and I've done it. I've now done it multiple times. By the fall of 2018, I was able to secure a low-cost equipment order for 1/4 of the cost that I was getting from bids from various different installers for a off-grid 7.2 kW system that included wires, that included the inverters, that included the batteries, and all of the other associated equipment. At that point in time, the town of Portsmouth was in a contest that had been sent to the Municipal Court of Newport on July 27th, 2018. And that contest was the town of Portsmouth Variance Board had approved a solar farm, ground-mounted solar system in the town of Portsmouth. At the ruling that was made on July 27th by Judge Van Koinigen in a appeal It was undisputed that the ordinance issue in this case does not provide for photovoltaic systems in the table of regulations. In other words, the town of Portsmouth had no solar regulations or ordinance at that point in time. The legislature of Rhode Island never intended to permit a zoning board to be closed with a blanket of authority. He concluded the Portsmouth Zoning Board erroneously determined a photovoltaic facility was permissible use due to lack of legislation authorizing that use, and he rescinded it back and said the town had been incorrect. Okay. In the meantime, the federal tax credit was sunsetting, so I needed to move in order to collect the federal tax credit. The state of Rhode Island has also a program to give me an $8,000 or $7,000 grant on my system, which is installed. But because the town of Portsmouth sat on my state permit, which I submitted to them in May of last year, they never forwarded to the state, despite my multiple requests to the building inspector in the town to do so. They sat on it, and therefore I ended up in the municipal court of the town. First time in my life, 65 years, I've been in a court, okay, as a defendant. In this particular case, the judge could not act. He did not act for 5 months. I went in for 3 of those 5 months. And then in December, learned that the town had lost my certified return receipt, a submission of my solar permit, and requested that I electronically submit it, which I did. All did. It took 3 hours in their office. I electronically submitted it. It was at that point in time I was told that this would be acted on by the town and would be forwarded on to the state. The town sat on it. They never gave me one response back on it. None, no complaints, never told me anything was wrong with my permit request, and never visited my property.
So we've requested many times that the building inspector, please come down to our property and actually take a look at what was going on. And he never came down. He did send his assistant, but the assistant on the initial didn't go around to the back to see that this was actually a solar system. So we're here to respectfully request a special use permit.
So basically at this point in time, I became entangled in an event that the town decided to appeal this overruling for the court in Newport, the appellate court, to the Supreme Court of the state of Rhode Island. They argued in oral arguments on the month I installed my system, May of last year, before the state, that they did have regulatory authority over these matters. They were joined by 6 of the 39 towns in that argument. I have yet to hear whether there's any result on that appeal to the state Supreme Court. I've not been told of it. That's even as of yesterday, when I went once again to the municipal court to talk to them about this matter. On each of the court meetings, the judge could not rule on it because the town had no ordinance. It was in June of last year, after my system had been completed, was working, and was providing electricity behind the meter for my home only, not fed back through a net meter, and fully compliant with all NEC requirements, that a draft ordinance for the town of Portsmouth was submitted. That was moved through the process through November and December. We went before the board, and then apparently it was passed while I was in New Hampshire. I was here for 5 months during the COVID crisis. My wife was...
And we just received the final ordinance by email today.
So basically, what has happened is I did exactly what I did in New Hampshire. I know you don't care, but that means I tried to use installers. They didn't do it properly. Twice, I had to then do it myself. And then for 1/2 of the price that you get a decent payback on for your investment, I was able to put it on my property. The place I put it at is fully compliant with setbacks. It's fully compliant with vegetation coverage. It's fully compliant with small size. In fact, it's 1/4 the size. by state law in Rhode Island, you are allowed to put on a former farm, and this is the first house built on Sea Meadow Farms after it was a 300-year-old farm. You're allowed to put 20% solar panels on your farm. My ground-mounted solar rack facing south at a 43-degree angle is capable of getting about 70% performance unless I cut down
It takes up
some trees.
2%.
And it
Mr.
takes,
Burnett, before we go on, could you tell me the last time that Sea Meadow Farm was farmed? Was a working farm?
I could not answer that. I think it was back in the
It hasn't been a working farm in 60 years. So I don't think that constitutes as a farm.
Well, all it says in the ruling is that if it's a former farm, you get to use, you have this special approval because they're trying to meet 100% standard. They failed to even get to 20%.
Well, to debate that argument, and I don't like to debate, I guess every single square inch of this town then would come under that same ordinance because all of it was farmed at one point in time.
Okay, but I would like to just
Only
say
one
that
generation removed.
we worked extremely hard to put it in a place where it really can't be seen. It's totally covered by vegetation, almost totally. And to do a roof mount in Sea Meadow Farms where everybody looks down, because we live 3/4 of the way down the hill, would just be, it'd be ugly.
And I remind you, none of the solar installers would do it. And I put the roof on myself with one other person. It's a taper sawn wood shingle roof, and it would look terrible with solar panels on it. And those that, the one person that we're aware of that has objected would look directly at that roof.
Could you tell the board what permits you received? I mean, even though the state, according to you, says everything comes under them, the state still refers to the state building code. So there are electrical requirements and all that. So did you pull electrical permits? Were there building permits pulled?
The issue has been in dispute since I submitted the information in May of last year.
So the answer is
All
no.
that information, and they have insisted that the structure is a shed, and I have persisted in the matter since the structure was form, fit, and function built to put solar panels on it at a 43-degree angle, that it is in fact a solar rack.
Oh, are you a structural engineer?
I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm certainly competent in building things, and I built a house up here in New Hampshire. So yes, I'm not a structural engineer, but I do have a BS engineering, and I put a great deal of information, by the way, in the solar permit on structural engineering ideas. And I would point out that the particular location where this is at, the one that would give you enough performance to come close to making it useful, is right over where the power comes in from the street, so underground cable, and over our septic system. So that's why I selected a ballasted ground mount system.
So the electrical, no electrical permit was pulled for that, correct?
No, I said all the information. It says in the state that you have to apply to the state and the town itself in its violation to me for building the structure, which they submitted to me in May as well. They said that I had to submit the state permit, which I did. And I told you, I've never received any feedback, nothing on it.
Go ahead, Mr. Board.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Borden from the zoning board. I'm not sure if I need to ask the solicitor or the assistant planner, but I'd just like some clarification in terms of, I know the petitioner is here for a special use permit, and I believe if I'm understanding correctly, that the Portsmouth solar ordinance was just recently passed. Is that correct? So my question is, does the petitioner comply with Portsmouth solar ordinance as it currently stands?
with all of the setback requirements.
If I could, I'd like to hear from our town solicitor or our assistant planner. You'll get a chance to respond later.
Very well.
Gavin?
Hold on. I think Mike's more familiar with all the details of this ordinance and this petition, but I mean, I think the issue is to hear the petition and decide whether it does comply or not. That's what's before the board.
So, I mean, I'm not a.
It's a special use permit, and I understood this was an application for a special use permit under the new ordinance.
Well, I also see dimensional variance, none complies with small system. So on the petition cover letter. So I'm not sure if it's just special use or if it's also dimensional variance.
May I speak?
No, not yet.
I don't see, Mike can probably, I don't see any request for dimensional variance in the petition.
Oh, maybe it's on the line, it's on the dimensional variance line. But
It says none. I think what they're basically saying is they're not requiring dimensional variance because they believe it complies with small.
so it should be none, period.
Right.
It complies with small system. All right.
Yeah.
Nothing complies.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right.
So,
All right.
Mr. Scholl, could you brief us?
Seems like it's not a very conventional system. It seems like it's a hybrid of a rooftop mount on top of a shed. It's not the typical format of a solar array. And I wonder, it's built on a shed that's not in the rear yard. I think that would be, that's something that jumps out to me.
So, Mr. Scholl, in your opinion, the existing solar array on this property is not compliant with our ordinance?
I think if it wasn't mounted on top of a roof of a shed, it would meet all the dimensional requirements. Although I question about height because it seems like it extends over the roof of the shed.
Right.
So it seems like it would be over the 12-foot requirement in the ordinance.
It's 11 and a half feet.
Okay. Are there any of the other board members that have questions on this? Pavlakis, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Ben Farrell. I do have a question.
Go ahead, Ben.
Mr. Burnett, are you a licensed electrician?
No, I had one on property when I was doing this.
You didn't do it. He did, and it was inspected.
And I also have a Rhode Island licensed electrician who was set up to meet with the building inspector back in May and June of last year, and they chose never to come down because they had no ordinance in which to enforce. That's the best of my understanding from dealing with the court. Because they had no ordinance, they couldn't come visit. They couldn't come do a site visit and look at the electrical installation. I am 100% confident I'm fully NEC requirement.
We would welcome.
And we'd welcome an inspection.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ms. Pavlakis, do you have any questions? Kathleen, still there? Okay, let's move on to Mr. Reposa. Mr. Reposa, any questions?
Haven't just dropped off.
Still have enough though.
Okay.
Mr. Wadika is on. Mr. Wadika, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Kathy's back on.
Kathy?
I'm back. It disappeared for a while. I'm back.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the applicants, Kathleen?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Horowitz, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, before I get to abutters interested parties, any additional information, Mr. and Mrs. Burnett, that you want to add to this?
Yes, please. The system as installed is 1/4 the size of the small system, not even close to being the size of a medium system. The vegetation which is around, which you'll see in those pictures, is similar to what would be required for a medium system. The system is installed. You could install a system on a garage. There's provisions for a ground mount system specifically put into the ordinance that was approved. So this is simply a ground mounted system which faces appropriately to the south at the right angle, and you can see the dip at the top that I put there. That was to keep it underneath the Tiverton requirements, which were the requirements which were in my permit request. And I was told by the building inspector it didn't matter, but those were the reference requirements for what was passed by the town of Portsmouth. I complied with all matters of setback, all matters of electrical integration and so forth. It's just that the town never took me up on the offer to come do an inspection and to see what we've done.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. I'm now going to take feedback from any abutters or interested parties, but before I do, I have 3 letters in the file that I'm going to read. The first one is addressed to James Knott, Chairman, subject solar system installation. It's from a Constance Q at 395 Sea Meadow Drive, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, 02871. I wish to object to issuance of a special use permit to construct a solar energy system located at 415 Sea Meadow Drive, which is immediately adjacent to my property at 395 Sea Meadow Drive. I note that the system has already been built without prior issuance of a permit and is clearly visible from our home. While I am fully supportive of responsible installation of energy conserving technologies such as rooftop solar panels, we know that many potential buyers of my property would consider ground level installations of the kind currently installed at 415 Sea Meadow Drive be unsightly and discomforting. The system is more reflective of those installed on industrial sites and on residential homes. Consequently, I feel the existence of this structure both has and will continue to have a negative effect on the value of my property. Moreover, I feel its presence is detrimental to many surrounding homes in the Sea Meadow community, one of the most highly valued communities in Portsmouth. Because I may not be able to be present at the time of the July 16th zoning board meeting, I request this matter be read aloud to all those in attendance and entered into the minutes of the meeting. Sincerely, Constance Q. The next one is a letter from a David Gugliotta, President of Sea Meadow Farms Homeowners Association, to the zoning board. I'm writing regarding reference matter representing the Sea Meadow Farms Association. As I am sure the board has been made aware, the structure with the solar system rests has already been constructed. The structure does not comply with the covenants of our association. I understand times have changed and the covenants were written years ago. Yet the structure itself is not generally in line with the design of the neighborhood, nor was the proper process followed. Personally, I support the use of alternate energy, and we have association rules that need to be considered. At any point, an association member finds they need something that appears to be restricted, they should present it to the board for reconsideration and work together to find a satisfactory solution. We ask that you take this letter into consideration for this application. Very respectfully, David Gugliotta. And the last letter on file is from a Ken Tia Siglinski, for the board and for the record. We object to the R20 installation of a solar energy system by Christopher and Deborah Burnett at 415 Sea Meadow Drive for the following reasons. Such a structure is in clear violation of the Sea Meadow Farms restrictions, which state No structure shall be erected upon the granted premises for any purpose or use other than for one single-family dwelling house and one private garage, for the housing of a maximum of 3 vehicles. Outbuildings of any description shall be erected on the granted premises, provided, however, that uses accessory to the residence, such as a greenhouse, pergola, or arbor, are permitted. The previous statement was extracted from the SEA, from the Sea Meadow Farms restrictions, as recorded in the Land Evidence Records, Town of Portsmouth, Rhode Island, in book number 73, page 233-237. Our current and past association members have worked hard to maintain the intent of the restrictions. Structure-supported solar energy system is totally alien to the character of the neighborhood that is sought to preserve a setting of unique but beautiful home sites. Although partially concealed by bushes, there is no guarantee that this will always be the case. Severe weather and plant disease may reduce concealment and allow greater visibility to an ugly structure that does not belong in our neighborhood. Although the Sea Meadow Farms restrictions, specifically dwelling house placement, shall be at least 35 feet from the front line of the property and 15 feet beyond any other boundary line, we do not know if the illegal solar system complies with current zoning restrictions. Every violation of the Sea Meadow Farms restriction serves to diminish the unique appeal of the neighborhood, and accordingly, the property values are also affected. Please deny the installation of this renegade solar system. Sincerely, Ken and Tia Seglinski. Now, before I open up to verbal abutters or interested parties, I will say this for the record. Anyone that's going to speak and bring up the covenants or restrictions, these are strictly a civil matter and will not be considered by the board. If you have a deed restriction or a neighborhood covenant, again, it's a civil matter. That's between the Sea Meadow Homeowners Association and the Burnett's. And the town of Portsmouth will not take that covenant into consideration, as all we will do is review the special use criteria. And for the record, I will go over the special use criteria. So it's the desired use will not be detrimental to the surrounding area. It will be compatible with neighboring land uses. It will not create a nuisance or hazard in the neighborhood. Adequate protection is afforded to the surrounding property by the use of open space and planting. Safe vehicular access and adequate parking are provided. Control of noise, smoke, odors, lighting, and any other objectionable features provided. Solar rights to the abutters are provided for. The proposed special use will be in conformance with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance of the town of Portsmouth, and the health, safety, and welfare of the community are protected. It is consistent with the purpose of design standards set forth in Article 9, Section D, and for developments within the town center district, the purpose of that district as expressed in Article 3. Now, are there any abutters or interested parties that would like to speak to this? If so, I believe you have to raise your hand. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, you raise your hand if you are in the Zoom program, or you dial *9. You raise your hand if you're on the.
So if you're attending the Zoom meeting, you raise your hand or dial *9 if you've called in and would like to speak to them on this. Okay. I just heard something, Mike. Okay.
Good night. Based on the letters, I have a question for the petitioner.
Absolutely. Mr. Borden has a question for the petitioners based on the letters that were written. So go ahead, Mr. Borden.
Are the petitioners, are the Burnetts on the screen? I don't see them.
We're here.
Okay, so my question is, there's been reference to a portion of your array that is visible. And I'd like more information in terms of just how much is visible, and would you be opposed to plantings or screening so it's completely invisible?
Absolutely. We do have pictures there from the street, and nobody behind us can see it. But we absolutely would.
If you drive by it, you can't see it
You
anymore.
can't. You'd have to stop and get out of your car and crawl through the bushes.
So the one abutter, the Keogh, I note that I spoke with John Keogh about it and Connie as well, and they originally said they were much for renewable energy, and also John Keogh had said he was fine with it, but apparently the wife disagrees.
But yes, we would be
They can see it
happy to plant.
if they go to a certain portion of their yard and look toward us, because they are directly adjacent to it.
So then it would be possible, in your opinion, to completely screen the array?
Yes, we can put arborvitae on the south end to extend what's already,
It's already
about
it's-
halfway across
it's
the
halfway
yard.
across right now. So if they want arborvitae's the rest of the way, then.
Thank you.
We planted a half dozen bushes out front as well for those that died or been removed because the town lost for it. And they've grown to fill in what was a small gap from the Sigalinsky house.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any other of the board members on this?
We have a, couple of hand raised.
Okay, so we can allow them to talk. Mr. Chappelle, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know that I'm an interested party, but as you know, I am the municipal court prosecutor. And we also, so I listened to Mr. Burnett. What had happened is he tried somewhat to apply for a permit, and the town was not taking permits based on what happened in Superior Court, and they were waiting for an ordinance so he could apply. When the ordinance was passed, because most you may know that I wrote that ordinance, or helped write it with the help of the zoning department. But when the ordinance was passed, it's allowed in a residential zone by special use permit. And I think that's why they're here. But even because it was approved beforehand, even if you grant the special use permit, he still needs other permits under the ordinance, which would be the electrical permits and the satisfaction of the building inspector that it was done to a code had it been applied to in the first place. He also, the Burnetts also have a ticket pending in municipal court because Mike referred to this, it's a little bit of a hybrid. Remember, if you have a rooftop system, it's allowed as a matter of right. The ground system is allowed as a special use permit. The way this is built, an argument can be made because it comes up a wall and then what appears to be a roof and is somewhat closed in the front. It could be a shed. If the board calls it a shed, or if the municipal court calls it a shed, he would need a single variance to have it in his side yard because it's located in his side yard and not his backyard. And the building inspector took the position that if it looks like a shed and smells like a shed and can have things stored in it like a shed, it is, and that it's in his side yard. So I agree with his testimony that it doesn't require any variances on setbacks. For a ground array, it has to meet all the setbacks that a building would meet. And it doesn't require any variances for lot coverage, because when you calculate the lot coverage, he fits. If it was just a ground ballast system, I don't think it needs anything. If it's called a shed, then that shed is not supposed to be in the side yard and needs that minimal regulatory variance. Or he still is going to come back to you after he goes back to the municipal court and they say you've satisfied issue 1, but not issue 2. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Chappelle, very much for that clarification. Okay. So, moving on, we will now vote. So, members voting on this petition will be Mr. Borden, Mr. Furell, Ms. Pavlakis, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Mr. Reposa, are you with us? I think Eric had dropped off earlier. Ms. Horowitz, you are with us, correct?
Yes, I am.
I'm
Okay.
here.
One, Mr. Furell, Ms. Pavlakis, Ms. Horowitz, and myself. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we vote, I would like to propose the condition
okay,
to this petition. And keep in mind that conditions can be placed on petitions whether the petition is approved or denied. Placing a condition does not guarantee that the petition will be approved. I would like to propose a condition that the petitioners plant screening vegetation such that the ground array will not be visible from any area on the property.
could I have a second on that condition?
I second it, Kathy.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis seconded it. So, in favor, Mr. Borden,
Yes,
Mr. Furell,
Yes.
Pavlakis,
Yes.
Ms. Horowitz,
Yes,
and the chairman also votes yes on that condition.
Chairman, one more thing is a point of order based on what Mr. Chappelle mentioned. Regards to the ground array, Mr. Chappelle mentioned that it could be compliant, but because it's in the side yard, he would need a dimensional variance to have it in the side yard versus the backyard. I'm not sure if that's something this board wants to address, or because it wasn't advertised and.
Now,
I just
wasn't
wanna stay away
advertised,
from
and
there.
I believe, Mr. Chappelle, that may still be debatable.
Okay,
So I say we go with the petition as is presented. So
Okay.
with no further ado, we will vote. So Christopher and Deborah Burnett, tax assessors map 42A lot 55, seeking a special use permit under Article 5, Section J-3, seeking a special use permit for the purpose of a ballasted ground mount 7.4 kilowatt solar system, which is already exists in the yard. So Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, this has been very interesting and quite complex petition in regards to the solar array, partly because of the Portsmouth Solar Array Ordinance and the fact that the petitioners were trying to install an array without an ordinance in place. But frankly, I could make an argument either way to approve or deny this, but based on the testimony that I've heard so far, I think that the petitioners made every effort to comply with the state ordinance. They made every effort to comply with the town. They asked the town to come down there, and because we didn't have an ordinance, they weren't able to get the permits. I think there's still going to be a court date pending, and there will be this matter will be addressed at a later date in court. However, when I analyze the special use criterion petition in regards to whether this is a nuisance or a hazard, it certainly is not a nuisance or a hazard. Solar energy is being promoted by the state as well as the entire country. The only area that may not be in compliance with special use is compatibility with the neighborhood. However, solar arrays are allowed on the roof, and in my opinion, the roof solar arrays are much less attractive than the ground arrays. So I think that if the petitioner screens the array such that it's completely hidden from view, no one will know that there is an array in place. And I think it will meet the special use criteria. So I vote to approve.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Furell?
Mr. Chairman, I vote to deny the special use permit. It appears to me that the special use permit criteria C and I, which relate to the safety of the installation, has not been met because the facility or the installation hasn't been inspected and approved by the town. Therefore, despite the expertise of Mr. Burnett, there's nothing that I can lean on as saying this is a safe installation. And because of that, I believe it fails the special use permit criteria and vote to deny the special use permit.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis?
I concur with Mr. Furio, and for the reasons that he just stated, I vote to deny the application as well.
Thank you. Ms. Horowitz?
I actually vote to approve the application for the reasons previously stated.
By Mr. Borden?
By Mr. Borden, sorry, yes.
That's okay. The chairman votes to deny as well. You know, I went right through the special use criteria. And ironically, Mr. Furell, I marked off C and I as well. When it comes down to will not create a nuisance or hazard in the neighborhood, and, you know, I asked the applicant if they were a structural engineer, and the answer was no, but I got construction experience, I built things. But that doesn't mean in a high windstorm or something that none of this would be torn up and become projectiles. We just don't know. And when I jumped down to section I, the health, safety, and welfare of the community are protected, well, my biggest concern would be the lack of an electrical inspection and an electrical permit, let alone the structural permit. The electrical is a bigger thing. And I don't know if it's installed correctly. I mean, I have to assume Mr. Burnett, according to him, has done this before. He knows what he's doing, but you miss one thing and it's not inspected, you backfeed a system and somebody gets hurt. It's an issue. So I don't believe that this has met all the special use criteria. So my vote is to deny as well. So the petition has been denied.
Could we welcome an electrical inspection? We would love that.
We've been trying to
we've
get
been
one.
trying to
I've
get
asked it
one.
not only in writing 4
We're
times,
wide
but
open.
I went and personally invited them to come down and do the inspection, and I had a master electrician certified in Rhode Island to do it. I put up all the signage required. I buried it properly. All the techniques, working was done to spec. The entire thing was done completely to.
But the biggest question, Mr. Burnett, does it meet every single letter in the electrical guidelines?
Yes, we would love to have it inspected because it meets and it goes beyond the Tiverton code. We would welcome
No,
that.
it exceeds multiple NEC requirements.
We're not talking about the Tiverton code. We're talking about the Portland
Talking about electrical code.
and the state building electrical code. So, I mean, you have that option of doing it, but for now, the petition has been denied.
Can we request an inspection?
You can do whatever you'd like from here. Absolutely, you can request an inspection, but still the petition has been denied.
So
your option from here is
My-
you can challenge this in state superior court, the board's decision. You know, if there's a substantial change to what's requested, and the board determines this is a substantial change, you can come back before the board.
okay. Could we get it inspected and then reapply? Is that?
But the way it would work, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you had the town's electrical inspector inspect it all, you had the building inspector and say everything complies with everything. And you come back to the board and say, look, we feel that we've had it all done. It's changed from our original petition. it's up to the board at that point in time to see if there's a change, but go ahead, Mike.
My controller, assistant town planner, I don't believe the building official or the electrical inspector can inspect a.
Without a permit.
Without a permit.
Right.
They're not able to get a permit because they can't get the special use for the proceeding without the proper, land use permit. So,
Right. So
Catch-22.
it is a catch-22, and this board doesn't have the answer. It's not us to provide the answer. So,
So I understand from speaking with the judge yesterday in the municipal court that pursuant to your decision at this point in time, which right now you've indicated is a negative, that he has set the case for trial on the third weekend in September. Third Wednesday of September. At this point in time, he's going to address, I guess, all the details of this, of which there are many. But in all of this, without the town willing to send this on to the state of Rhode Island, which it has not, or without the town willing to conduct the inspection, which we have requested and has been an open matter, as Mr. Chappelle said, because there was no ordinance, they wouldn't come and do the inspection. We're caught in a catch-22 on that element. And because the town is still caught in its issues with fight between the state and the town about who controls what in the ordinance for ground-mounted solar system, at this point in time, we have a fully operational, fully safe, fully compliant with NEC, not only national code, but National Grid has certified our equipment for this as well.
Mr. Burnett, we're not going to debate this or discuss it anymore. The board has made its decision. So we need to move on to other petitions.
Well, how do we get somebody to come and inspect? I'm confused.
Can you give us some guidance on how you
The board is not the venue for giving you guidance. We just make the decision on how it affects the ordinance. I would suggest maybe you talk to the town planner, you talk to the building inspector, electrical inspector, but this board is not the venue for providing guidance to applicants. We just basically determine whether you meet the criteria or don't. Okay, thank you.
Next petition on the agenda.
All right, the next petition on the agenda is a petition by Duncan Gray Distributing LLC. And they're requiring, I believe, a modification of seeking to revise a special use permit that was granted in April of 2019 now. For the record, the chairman needs to recuse himself from this, so Mr. Borden will chair it, and hearing it will be Mr. Borden, Mr. Furell, Ms. Pavlakis, Ms. Horowitz, and Mr. Ledika. All yours, Mr. Borden.
Can I stay here, Mr. Scholler, or do I need to make?
I just asked if there are any more presenters for the next petition other than Matt Gray and Chris Fagan. To raise your hand and I'll promote you panelist role. Matt, is it just you and Chris presenting tonight?
I believe it is.
Okay. We have a petition to amend the special use permit, and I'd like to start off by asking if you have any expert witnesses that you plan on testifying, and my guess is the answer is no, since you said there's no one else that's going to be presenting.
That is correct. We do not have any new expert witnesses. We would just rely on any of the previous testimony from the previous approvals.
Okay, so then what I'd like you to do then is describe to the board what is changing in regards to the special use permit approval that you received earlier. And specifically, I'm interested in how that relates to all the criteria in terms of noise, smoke, odors, traffic. Do you anticipate any additional traffic based on your amended petition? Effect on landscaping, buffer areas, interior flow within the site. Please explain to the board what has changed, what essentially what you're proposing to amend from your original approval.
Okay. So my name is Matthew Gray. I live at 87 Colonel Christopher Green Road in Portsmouth. I'm the owner of the property at 54 Bristol Ferry Road. I own and operate Ragged Island Brewing Company, which is currently located at 200 High Point Ave in the Industrial Park. And we are also the petitioner as Donovan Gray Distributing LLC. We're seeking an amendment to our previously approved special use permit that would have allowed us to build a roughly 10,000 square foot new construction facility on the property of 54 Bristol Ferry Road to be the home of our brewery business. We are far down the path until about March, when COVID-19 created disruption in our business plans and made us rethink our construction plans as well. So rather than construct a new facility, we have revised our plans and are seeking to refurbish an existing barn structure on the property to significantly reduce the overall impact of our plans on the overall property, but will still allow us to move our brewing operations to the farm quicker and at a significantly reduced expense, obviously due to the times. So the existing barn structure that we're looking to upgrade is building number 3 on the site plans. This is a structure that has existed on the property since roughly the 1960s. I don't know the exact dates. It is a 3,600 square foot post and beam barn that has been used for maintenance and storage on the farm for years. Half of this structure is finished with a board and batten siding and a concrete slab, while the other half is completely unfinished with only plastic wrap on both sides and a dirt floor. This unfinished side was used to store like backhoes and tractor and other equipment during the winter, I believe. Our goal is to freshen up this building with new board and batten siding, new garage doors, as well as new windows and doors, and 2 cupolas on top to add to the classic New England design. We have received a favorable opinion from both the design review committee and the planning board over the past few weeks regarding these changes. Our long-term plans no longer include the previously approved 10,000 square foot facility. We intend to actually leave the space that we are going to place this new structure as open space. And we're in fact in talks with the Aquidneck Land Trust on a conservation easement of the 22 acres of wetlands on the property, as well as several other acres of developable land that we would like to deed in perpetuity to the land trust. We would still use that part of the land for our farming activities, including growing hops and other ingredients for the use in brewing. We have also begun the process of executing our previously approved landscaping plans with the addition of nearly $2,000 in evergreen plants and native bushes along the side of the property line we share with the Kissel property. And that has all been done with their approval. Additional landscaping work will be ongoing this fall to further buffer the property, including their property and others as required through the landscape plan that we have brought forward. The landscaping plan that we have brought forward is not changed from the last time it was approved. That was done by Verde landscape architect designers who are certified landscape architects. So that to speak to the landscaping aspect, there's a fence that would be put in along the Kissel property on their western border with our property. That is still in conversation as we're trying to make sure it's appealing to them and put in a place that makes sense for them. That proposed wooden structure would ultimately be on their property, if they so choose, or it will be, if they do not want that, we would be putting it on our side of the property. We are also working on, installing the arborvitae along the northern side of our property that abuts several of our neighbors as well. Each of them will have an opportunity to discuss with us the placement and location of all those plants, but we do intend at this time to put in all of the arborvitae that are required to buffer the property properly. As far as noise, there will be no changes to our plan in noise. In fact, it'll actually probably be less noisy on the property just because of the smaller impact of the overall project. We do not have any issues with smoke. Odor is very similar. I mean, it's the same as what we were previously approved for. There will be no new odors by moving to the barn versus the new construction. And then as far as traffic goes, our plan does not alter the traffic at all that was previously testified to. And we actually, in fact, would expect that the traffic on our property will also be slightly reduced due to the fact that there is one less building on the property as we are proposing it now. As far as the interior flow of traffic, we have very similar traffic pattern as we had on the previously approved application. We are doing a curb cut that has been approved by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. That would bring back the pre-existing curb cut that was here on the property many years ago prior to Bristol Ferry Road's repaving. At that time, the previous owners had allowed the state to close off that driveway because they were no longer using it, but we do prefer to use it as it would be safer for us to have traffic flowing in on one side of our property and out on the other side. So we'd have basically one-way traffic on our property. And then as far as, I think that covers Mr. Borden's questions. Over the past 4 weekends too, I'd like to note that we have had the pleasure of hosting several hundred guests using our agricultural special event permit that was granted by this board in July. In that time, we hope that our neighbors and also the town residents have been able to see what is happening over here, to understand the kind of relaxed crowds that we draw and the way that we manage our business at this property. It's certainly been a great opportunity to learn how traffic flows in and out and give us a better understanding of what changes we might need to make to get people on and off our property safely. If we are approved by the board tonight, we would be able to move forward with our construction plans and hopefully move our brewery here over the winter of 2020, 2021. I'm happy to answer any other questions or concerns the board may have. Thank you for your time.
Yes, Mr. Gray, I have another question. I'm reading from the decision from the original approval. The decision is dated April 11th, 2019. And the board placed conditions on your petition. 1, operating hours for retail operations will be from 12 noon to 9 p.m. And 2, operating hours for the brewery facility will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. My question is, are those conditions still in place, and do you plan on amending either of those?
Those are the same conditions we were looking for. We are not looking to change those conditions.
Okay, so just to summarize, based on your introductory testimony, it appears as though in regards to the changes or what you're amending from your original approval is you're eliminating what you initially proposed as a 10,000 square foot building, and you're replacing it with an existing building that's going to be 3,600 square feet. Did I hear correctly that you're modifying the landscaping plan to add additional plants?
The landscaping plan has not changed. It is the exact same. All I indicated was that we've already begun to put plants in place.
Okay. I heard something about $2,000 more of plants, but
No, we've already installed the first set of our landscaping requirements.
Okay, and the fence that you referenced, that was part of the original plan, so that hasn't changed either. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so essentially, the only change that you're proposing is eliminating the new 10,000 square foot building and rehabbing an existing 3,600 square foot building.
That is correct.
And basically, in your opinion, there's less, because of the smaller scale, the impact on traffic, if anything, would be less severe, both internally and off-site.
That's correct.
Okay. Board members, do they have any questions of the petitioner?
This is Kathy. No, I do not.
Sue?
This is Sue. I have no questions.
Mr. Farrell?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple questions for Mr. Gray.
Please go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
Mr. Gray, in your original petition, what was that barn building going to be used for?
It would have remained storage and maintenance for our tractor and for additional storage as it previously had been. And there would have been no rehabilitation to that building at all. It would have been a longer term goal of ours to rehab that building. I believe it's an improvement on the overall plan. It's certainly more financially viable for us and has less impact on the environment as well, which is another bonus for us.
And in the new usage of that building, it looks like from the drawings, the actual brewery operation will be moved into that barn. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in your previous application, the brewery, the tanks and all that stuff was going to be in the I forget whether it was an 11,000 square foot building, in the larger building. Is that true?
That is correct.
So when you move the brewery to this barn, are you actually reducing the production capacity vis-a-vis your original application?
So in the original application, we would have had room to grow in a more significant way in the new space. In the current application, we will not have as much room to grow in the future, but in our new plan, that is fine with us.
The thing I was trying to get to is your capacity, the production capacity, and therefore any odors or any outward signs of production aren't going to be any bit greater than they were with your original petition.
No, in fact, they'll be a little bit reduced.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Other board members, any questions of the petitioner? Okay, hearing none, are there butters and interested parties? Actually, Mr. Gray, did you have someone else that wishes to speak?
My architect, Chris Fagan, is on the line. He's here to answer any questions you have about the building that we are rehabbing. But I don't know if he's needed to speak, but if you would like to ask him any questions, we certainly can do that.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions of the architect? The chair does not at this point in time.
Kathy speaking. No, we do not.
Sue speaking. No, I do not.
Bill speaking. I do not.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready to hear from abutters or interested parties. Not sure if there are any letters in the file.
I don't believe there were. Again, if you'd like to speak on the record, please either raise your hand if you're on the Zoom app, or if you're a call-in, dial *9 at this time.
There were letters.
I don't believe so.
Okay, the chair does not see any abutter letters in the file. Mr. Scholl, are there any abutters or interested parties that have raised their hands?
There are not.
There are not. Okay. Do any board members have any final questions of the petitioner, or are any board members interested in proposing any conditions to this petition?
Ben Farrell has no questions.
I have none. Kathy speaking.
I have no questions. It's Sue.
Bill Deacon, no questions.
Okay, all right. I'm going to close the hearing to testimony then, and I think we're ready to vote. Donovan Gray Distributing is petitioning for an amendment to their special use permit that they received approval for in April of 2019. The only approval that they are seeking is special use permit approval. Mr. Farrell.
Mr. Chairman, I vote to approve the amendment to the special use permit. The revised plan has a reduced impact on the community, and therefore, given that the original special use permit satisfied the A through J special use criteria, it's logical to assume and correct to assume that this new reduced plan also satisfies the special use permit criteria. I therefore vote to approve.
Thank you. Ms. Horowitz?
I vote to approve for reasons previously stated.
Kathy?
I vote to approve for reasons previously stated. I am a proponent of the use of existing buildings and open space, and I vote to approve. And it's unfortunate that COVID has hit, and I know Mr. Gray's made a big investment, but I vote to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Wadika?
I vote to approve for the reasons previously stated.
The chair is also going to approve. This, in my opinion, is a favorable use. It's a win-win. The town of Portsmouth benefits by taking all of this acreage and putting it to an agricultural use versus a subdivision. Clearly, the amended petition is almost a third of the size at 3,600 square feet versus 10,000 square feet. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out it's going to have less of an impact on traffic and any other special use permit criteria. It's certainly compatible with the comprehensive community plan that promotes farmland, and I wish them the best, and I wholeheartedly vote to approve. Your petition has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, may I recommend a 5-minute break?
Yes. Well, I'll defer to our chair, who has returned to his chair.
Returned, and yes, we will take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
My phone in. I don't know if we're on a 5-minute break. I couldn't talk to you. Are you still out there? Wow. Oh, yeah, I mean, he made this, like, solar contraption thing without a permit, and granted, he was having a hard time to get people to come, but it's cool, you know, I still can't get my license, that's what it goes. So we built it anyway, and, he's really snotty, and he's snotty, they just forget it. I mean, when people come up, you know, start acting like that. I mean, it's up to the, you know, when you get to the law, but when they start coming out like that, I know it's such a precedent for a lot of people to come back. I wouldn't want to go next time. Right? Yeah, all right, well, I'll let you go. I'm going to go to recreational practice now. So, anyways, okay, bye. All right, the zoning board of review is back in session. Let me make sure Mr. Borton's here. I mean, Mr. Furell, you are online, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Pavlakis, you are online? Kathleen, are you online? Ms. Horowitz, are you on?
I'm here.
Mr. Wadika, are you on? Okay, we need to just wait till Mr. Wadika and or Ms. Pavlakis come back on. Like, Kathleen there anywhere? She's there.
Ability come back.
Kathleen, are you on?
I am.
Okay, good. All right. Just for anyone in that's listening in or attendance for a petition tonight, just a reminder, the board does meet till 10 p.m. and we will try to get through as many petitions as is possible. If we do not get to them tonight, they will be continued to our September meeting. So the next item on the agenda is a petition by Frank Pizarro of 259 Riverside Street, which is tax assessor's map 15, lot 59, seeking a special use permit and a dimensional variance of a 20-foot variance to the rear, so there would be no distance, be right at the property line. An 8-foot variance to the side where 10 is required, and a 7-foot on the opposing side. And they're also seeking a 21.48% lot coverage variance, which the proposed lot coverage variance, if approved, would be 41.48%. Is Mr. Pizarro on?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Mr. Pizarro, swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Okay, could you just give your full name and address for the record verbally so Barbara can record it?
Frank Paul Pizarro II, 259 Riverside Street, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, 02871.
Thank you, Mr. Pizarro. Okay, could you explain to the board kind of what's going on, what you're seeking?
Yep. So pretty straightforward. We bought our property back in 2014 and have been we bought it. We've just been trying to kind of rehab it into a more livable situation here in Island Park. As many of you know, Island Park is a pretty tight community as far as lots are concerned. So we've just been trying our best to, stay in our little postage stamp while, turning our lot into a place that we can enjoy. So we have a wooden patio that we put off of the side of the house that we took out some old rotted patio, rotted shed, all this kind of stuff, got rid of what was there, some pre-existing stuff that was there and expanded it a little bit. So we got that. And then a boardwalk off of the back of the house that connects to the patio.
Okay. So in your packet, there's a notice of violation from back in like a year ago.
Yes, sir.
And there's a building permit shortly after that. Can you kind of explain that? Yeah,
so the initial violation was given to us. We had already done the work, and we were, apparently a neighbor or somebody had called the town to tell them that we had done the work. So we weren't aware of what needed to be done. We got the violation, and I've been trying to work with the town over the last year to kind of come to some resolution as to exactly what needs to happen to make this right. We're not trying to get away with anything. I'm happy to do whatever it takes to make it right. So initially we were sent to the
CRMC.
It's CRMC, but we were sent there. Yeah, we were sent there by the building inspector. So we went to CRMC. We got everything that they told us we needed, paid for the permits and all that kind of stuff with them. And we brought all that back to the building inspector. And I don't fully remember the details of what happened, but it came to the point where he said, well, first you have to go through the zoning board now. That's when he introduced me to Mr. Escola, and I started working with him on this permit and getting an application and kind of getting everything realigned, because apparently we weren't heading in the right direction the first time around.
Okay. So my question is, the wooden patio and boardwalk, the wooden patio, is that in addition to what existed, or is that where that exact footprint was, where these rotted boards were when you purchased the home?
No, there was some semblance of a patio there and some semblance of rotted wood. The home actually had been converted into a 2-family home, I'm sure illegally, because I have never seen any record otherwise. And there was like a rotted little patio off of the first floor, and then a rotted deck off the second floor, which we got rid of all of that stuff. So what was there was all taken out, and then this patio was put down, somewhat in the place of what was already there, but we certainly expanded it, to just pretty much fill the rest of that section of yard. And then the boardwalk itself was not there. That was something that we added.
Right. Questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Right, Mr. Borden?
Mr. Borden here, and bear with me for a moment while I get to your lot coverage page.
Yep.
The chair asked the question that I was concerned about, which was what existed prior to you building the house. But if you look at your lot coverage section of your petition, you have existing and you have proposed additions. And under the proposed additions section, you list all kinds of separate things. So I guess my question would be, when you purchased the home, based on what you just told us, my guess is that there was a lot more already in place. You mentioned the rotted patio and so forth. I'm curious what the existing coverage was and try to calculate that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I tried to estimate it, but unfortunately, it had all been removed, so I have no exact measurements of that. We had quite a bit of time trying to just go back and remember exactly what was there in the rough dimensions of it, but unfortunately, it's all been removed, so I can't.
Okay, so did you remove it?
Yes.
Okay, because it was rotted, but it did exist.
Yes. There.
All right, so I'm curious, I see an asterisk next to the walkway, 24 by 4, 96 square feet. Is that something that you added that wasn't there before you purchased the house or after you purchased the house?
That was added after we purchased the house. Yes, sir.
All right, so to the best of your knowledge, other than the walkway, what else did you add after you purchased the house?
So that wooden patio area was expanded to be a bigger area.
Okay, so the patio, you listed 20 by 26.5.
Yes, sir.
530 square feet. How much did you expand it by?
It would be an estimation, but I would say, substantially, I would say the original patio was probably half that size.
All right, okay, so you might have expanded it by 260 square feet. What about the stairs? Did you add the stairs?
No, those were already there. There was actually a very intricate staircase. As I said, someone had turned it into a two-family. So there was actually a very intricate staircase, multiple sets of stairs, one going to the first floor, the other going up to the second floor with different levels and a shed and all of that. And that's all been removed.
Okay, so you removed the shed.
Mm-hmm.
What was the dimensions of the shed that you removed? And the shed that you removed, is there now a patio or a walkway in place of that shed?
Right where you see that platform that says 5 feet by 5.75 feet, that was roughly the shed. It was a little bit bigger than that, but it was underneath that platform.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any questions from any of the other board members, Ms. Furell, or do you have any questions?
Yes, this is Ben Farrell. I do have a question for Mr. Fasaro.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Fasaro, if I understand correctly, you've already completed the wooden patio and all, or at least a substantial part of this renovation?
Yes, sir.
And has it been inspected?
No, it hasn't. That was one thing. We did have the assistant building inspector down to look at it when this whole thing first started. I thought he was coming down to do exactly that, but it never happened. He came down, he looked at it, he walked around, but then he said, we need to go through the proper channels. And so there hasn't been an official inspection done by the town, no.
Has there been construction permits pulled?
No, that's where we're at right now. That's why we got to this point. We weren't aware that we had to pull construction permits for this. We thought we were just, renovating what was already, pretty much there.
But for the record, Mr. Pissarro, you did pull building permit back in October of 2019, correct?
Yes, that was 2019.
That was October of 2019.
We've pulled a few for other projects that we've done since we bought the house, so that's very possible. I can't remember off the top of my head what that project was, but we have pulled a couple.
So for the record, every time you've gone to make a modification, you've gone to get a building permit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, when we knew that we had to have a permit, yes, sir, we went and got the necessary documentation.
Okay.
And one more question relative to the Coastal Resources Management Commission. Have they signed off on this, or do they need to sign off on this?
Initially, they did. Initially, I presented them with the same plan and project, and they signed off on it. I believe that you have a copy of that somewhere in that file.
Yes, we do. We do.
Maintenance assent.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have for Mr. Pissarro. Mr. Chairman, I do have a question relating to, can we put a condition that, permits and inspections and all that stuff has to be accomplished within some time frame as a condition for, should we approve this?
Well, the only thing I will say about that, Mr. Fiorell, is you could put a condition on that, but remember, we can put a condition on it, but given the current situation, that may not be realistic timeframes. We could say that they have to get a building permit within 30 days, but it may take 60 days for all we know. So I know Mr. Ashola does want to interject something here. Go ahead, Mike.
Just to clarify, the original permits were pulled, it was for just maintenance of the existing structures.
Right.
And when it was determined that they were expanded, and then that's when the violation was issued. And as part of the violation, the applicant would be required to get the proper building permit and have it inspected because they give occupancy.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sue.
Yes, sir.
Can we, relative to what was asked about a condition for a permit, maybe instead of the actual permit, we say that demonstrates that they have started the process, even if they haven't received the permit yet?
Yeah, I mean, you can propose whatever condition you want, and yeah, that's quite, because I'm sure you understand the concerns about putting an actual time frame on it.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, at least if they can show that they have started so in other words, they haven't just ignored the problem, they have started the paperwork and everything that needs to be done, even if because of the situation they haven't actually got the permit in hand.
I believe that's why they're here. Correct. Right, Mr. Pissarro?
Yes, that's correct.
Can't get the building permit until this board decides whether you get a variance or not. Right?
This is the catch-22 you referenced earlier, yes.
Mr. Gavin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it's not all that uncommon that people get notices of violation because they didn't know they had to get a building permit, and then they come to get the necessary approvals for the board. But in the normal situation, when someone comes to the board for the variances or a special use permit, it's always subject to applying for the necessary building permits and getting the required inspections after the fact. So, I mean, otherwise the board would be putting conditions on every approval that subject to getting building permits and inspections and approvals. I think that kind of goes without saying.
Absolutely. You're correct, Mr. Gavin. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fiorell, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Ms. Pavlakis, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Ben Ferriero asked something I wanted to ask, so it's, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Horowitz, anything?
No, I don't.
I don't as well. So I know there are no letters in the file regarding this, so I will ask for any abutters or interested parties that may want to speak to this. So I believe you can either raise your hand if you're on Zoom or *9 if you've called in. We'll give it a second. And see none. Okay, Mr. Pizarro, the one thing I will do is I am going to just go over some special use criteria because it is a substandard lot of record.
Okay.
So if this is allowed, would it still allow adequate space for fire protection?
Yes.
Okay, would it still provide adequate light and air between buildings?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Would it alter the character of the neighborhood or adversely affect any neighboring properties?
Only in the positive.
Okay, would it create lot coverage or setbacks less than the average lot coverage and setbacks of adjacent properties?
No, sir. In fact, I have a list of adjacent properties with their lot coverage if that's necessary.
Would it impose a substantial detriment to the public or to immediate neighbors?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pizarro. All right, so Frank Pizarro is before the board for tax services map 15, lot 59. He is seeking a 20-foot rear yard setback, an 8-foot side yard setback, a 7-foot side yard setback, a 21.48% lot coverage variance, and also a special use permit because it is a substandard lot of record. Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, I will vote to approve the special use permit for the substandard lot of record. The petitioner has met all the criterion under the ordinance, and I don't see that as an issue. In regards to the dimensional variance, on the surface, these variances may seem extremely excessive. However, when you consider the size of the lot is 3,920 square feet for an R10 zone, like 40% of the 10,000 square feet R10 requirements. A lot of the quote unquote structures were already existing, and they're not really structures. There's patios, walkways, all of those really are unobtrusive and nearly at ground level, but they're being included in the lot coverage. Additionally, I didn't finish all the math, but I think the petitioner overstated the relief that he's requesting. The only additional coverage that the petitioner added since he purchased the property was a 24-by-4 walkway of 96 square feet and roughly half of the 20 by 26.5 patio. So for roughly 355 square feet of additional square footage, which is 9% lot coverage above what's existing. And that number is high because the lot itself is so small. So in my opinion, the petitioner is seeking the least relief necessary. Essentially what he did was repair the existing structures, if you will, to make the property safer. He got rid of a shed and made minimal additions to the property. He got CRMC approval, and he's trying to work with the town. He did fill out a building application, and I think to deny would amount to a hardship more than a mere inconvenience for him to fully enjoy the permitted residential use of the property. So I vote to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Borden. Mr. Furell.
Mr. Chairman, I also vote to approve the special use permit, the dimensional variances, and the lot coverage increase for the reasons cited by Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis.
I also vote to approve for the reasons previously stated.
Both the special use permit and the variances?
Yes, but I do want to add, so I just have to say this. I think this sets a bad precedent for people adding on and not getting permits and building things. I think people have to start doing that. And then it bothers me that this person applied for permits before and then said he didn't know he needed a permit for this and built it. I think it sets a bad precedent. I vote to approve it, but I want that stated.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pavlakis. Ms. Horowitz?
I vote to approve both the dimensional variance and the special use permit for reasons previously stated.
Thank you. The chairman votes to approve both the special use permit and the dimensional variance and lot coverage variance for reasons previously stated by Mr. Borden. So, Sorrow, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Ready. Moving on, the next item on the agenda is a petition by Randall and Kim Blanchett of 153 Massasoit Avenue, tax assessors map 5, lot 3A, seeking a special use permit because they are a substandard lot of record and a rear yard setback of 8 feet and a lot coverage variance of 9%. Are the Blanchetts on?
Yes. Hello, can you hear us?
We can hear you and we can see you. For the record, could you individually state your names and addresses for Barbara?
Sure. Randall Blanchett, 153 Massasoit Ave in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Kimberly Blanchett, 153 Massasoit Ave in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Okay, why don't you explain the board what you'd like to do or possibly have done?
Actually, yeah, we have not done any work yet. It's kind of like what's already been discussed. We got to get the variance approved before we can get our permits to do what we want to do. But we're proposing to put a new in-ground pool, 12 by 18, in the kind of the rear left of our yard, which requires normally, I guess it's a 20-foot setback. You know, we'd like to only set it back 12 feet. And that's about it. I mean, there also the question is the lot coverage. There was a little confusion when I went, I had originally submitted nowhere on the paperwork that it said I had to include the stone work around the pool. So when my initial lot coverage, I came out about is roughly 19%. And then, you know, I was talking to the planner, I was asking him, oh, are we on the docket for the meeting? He said, well, what about this decking? I said, well, no, I didn't really put that in the lot coverage. Well, it's not really decking, it's stone interlocking pavers. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll put it's roughly 500 square feet of interlocking pavers around the pool. I'll add that to the lot coverage. And of course that bumped it up to like 29% lot coverage. And, that's pretty much where we are today. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you a question because I did a satellite view of the property and it looked like, and I don't know how long you've owned the property, but it looked like there was an above ground pool there.
That is correct. You caught us. Yeah, we had an above ground pool that we took down at the beginning of this year. It was near the shed. That's correct.
That's gone.
It's been removed. It's no longer here.
Yeah, we like to do our homework.
Yeah, you definitely put us on that one. But yeah, the way the above ground pool, not this matters, where it was located, it would never heat up. It wasn't usable. We felt where it is. We say, hey, we're getting ready to retire. We want to have a nice in-ground heated pool, hopefully, and be able to enjoy in our retirement. And that's where we are.
And we bought the property in 1998.
Yeah, we've lived here
22 years.
Okay. Good. And does anyone have any questions of the Blanchetts at all? Mr. Borden? No. No. Well, Mr. Furell, any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the Blanchetts.
Sure. Go ahead.
As the chairman did, I'm on Google Maps right now, looking at the satellite view, and to the east of your property, there's sort of a little set of scrub next to your property before it becomes lawn.
Mm-hmm.
from the adjoining property. Is that a right of way or something?
That actually, I think they call that a paper road. It's like a strip of land. I think it's 10 feet wide that is between this property and my neighbor's property to the west. And it's kind of like a no man's area. There is an easement on the other side of my property for, there's a drainage pipe that runs a drain that goes out to the back. But I couldn't really tell you much about that strip of woods. I know it doesn't, I don't know who it belongs to, but I know it's about 10 feet wide. It shows on the town maps. You know, I've heard somebody refer to it once as a paper road. It only existed on paper. I don't even know if that's the right term, but yeah, I couldn't really tell you much about that strip of land.
Okay,
what
but
it's used.
No one maintains it.
Yeah.
But it's on that side of your property where the pool will be. Is that-
Correct.
Correct.
But we're still within the 10-foot setback to my property line, which goes
Yes.
beyond my fence there.
So that even though you're looking to get a little closer to your property line, that, you know, and therefore requiring a variance, the distance from the edge of your pool to your neighbor's property line across that paper road is still going to be on the order of 30 feet.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to
Correct.
be like 10 feet. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're way off anybody's property line on the west side, I guess. It's really the back
It's the back.
that was really,
And
no.
behind you is basically the electrical easement. It's where the electrical line, so
Correct.
Correct.
nothing going to be built back there.
Correct. And my neighbors use like 10 feet of that land. So, you know, they have, I should say, but a lot of people have you know, landscaped that area behind. There's like a good probably
10 feet?
probably 20 feet to where it goes down to the poles. You know,
Okay, I see that.
That's a cliff.
yeah, people enjoy kind of using that property, I think, a little bit, but they probably shouldn't, but I don't, but.
Yes, so you're going to be really encroaching on your neighbors because of the paper road on one side and the electrical easement to the south.
Correct, yeah. You know, we felt that, you know, what we proposed is, it would never affect anybody in any way as far as setbacks go, but, you know.
It's the letter of the law.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Ms. Pavlakis, anything from you?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Horowitz?
No questions.
Chairman doesn't either. There are no letters in the file. Do we have any abutters or interested parties that would like to speak to this? If so, please raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or *9 if you're calling in. Seeing no one,
Okay.
Randall and Kim Blanchett are before the board seeking an 8-foot rear yard variance. Actually, before I do that, Blanchett, I do have to run through the special use criteria with you. So if this were to be granted, would it still allow adequate space for fire protection?
Yes.
Yes.
Would it provide adequate light and air between buildings?
Yes.
Yes.
Would it alter the character of the neighborhood or adversely affect any of your neighboring properties?
No.
No.
Would it create any lot coverage or setbacks less than the average lot coverage and setbacks of adjacent properties?
Actually, I think we're reasonable. Actually, like the prior gentleman said, I walk around the neighborhood, and if you start counting the stonework, I think most folks are probably higher than what we're asking for in this area. At least Common Fence Point is pretty tight as well. I think for the most part, I think a lot of people are in the same boat.
I'll take that as a no.
We'll take that as a no.
Is this a substantial detriment to the public or to immediate neighbors?
No.
Thank
No, sorry. That's probably a little bit.
So Randall and Kim Blanchett are before the board on the tax assessor's map 5, lot 3A, seeking a special use permit for a substandard lot of record. and seeking an 8-foot variance to the rear of their property for the purpose of installing an in-ground pool. Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I approved the special use permit for the substandard lot of record. They've met all the criteria based on what they're proposing. It's not going to impact any of that criteria. In regards to the rear yard setback request of 8 feet, it's not an excessive request. They have a utility easement back there that even softens it. There are no abutters that are anywhere near there that are going to be impacted. And in regards, so I vote to approve that rear yard variance of 8 feet. And in regards to the lot coverage, everything that they're proposing, in my opinion, is really not a structure. Pool is ground level. The stone patio is ground level. All of that additional 10% coverage, in my opinion, is not really a structure. And they're in compliance at 19% existing. So I think it would certainly amount to more than a mere inconvenience to deny the petition. A pool is a reasonable request to enjoy accessory use, to enjoy the permitted use. The lot, they're constrained by the fact that the lot is only 6,000 square feet. So I vote to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Borden. Mr. Furell.
Mr. Chairman, I also vote to approve the special use permit for a substandard lot, the dimensional variance and the lot coverage variance for the reasons cited by Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis.
I also vote to approve all 3 applications for the reasons previously stated by Mr. Borden.
Thank you, Ms. Horowitz.
I vote to approve all 3 applications for reasons previously stated.
Thank you. The chairman also votes to approve for both the special use criteria and the setback request. Again, I believe Mr. Borden to deny amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. So you have been approved.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You too.
Okay, moving along, the next item on the agenda is a petition by Robert Yates seeking a dimensional variance for rear yard shed placement requirement. Article 4, Section C5, to construct a 10 by 12 storage shed located at 0 Windstone Drive, which is tax assessors map 48A-72, which is an adjacent lot under common ownership to the principal lot known as 446 Windstone Drive. 48A-74. Is Mr. Yates on?
Court Chappelle is on for Mr. Yates, Mr. Chairman.
I thought so, Mr. Chappelle. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm hoping you'll find this pretty easy, but I think we need to go through a brief history lesson. This is no more than a person that has 2 separate taxed buildable lots that are adjacent to each other. For years, the town took the position that if you wanted an accessory structure, such as a pool or a tennis court or a shed, you could put that on a lot that you owned that was adjacent to your own. Remember that by its definition, although accessory uses are allowed in a residential zone, they're not allowed by themselves. So if I own a lot in the middle of Sea Meadow, I can't go put just a tennis court or a pool on it because it has to wag the dog. It has to be part of the house that's next to it. And kind of ever since we started looking a little closer at tennis courts and basketball courts a couple of years ago, everything now is kind of requiring a permit, even when it's on a adjacent lot that we own. So you'll see from the drawing that was submitted that Mr. Yates owns not only his own home, but he purchases this and owns this separate lot next door, and it has a big basketball court on it that was completely legal at a time when we didn't require another permit. It also has a batting cage, which isn't a structure really, but it's drawn on the map. So now he wants to put, with the basketball court and the batting cage and kids, comes all the toys and things that that tend to be used in that area. So we wanted a small shed. The shed is 12 by 10, which if you put it in a backyard could be 3 feet away from the property line. This shed requires no variances in that it independently meets the front yard setback, the side yard setback, the rear yard setback, and all lot coverages, even with the basketball court and the batting cage. If you've gone down there, you'll see that this lot is 8 to 10 feet below the grade of the road, and you'll see the riprap retention wall that's basically grown. And up on the road, there's a hedge, an arborvitae hedge that you can't see through. So this small shed, you can't even really see from the road. So now that we are requiring, there's a good view of the court. Now that we are requiring an accessory use on its own lot to have a permit, it's kind of a variance to say, can I put a lot on a shed on a separate lot that doesn't have a house on it that fits all setback requirements? And I think it's just as easy as that when a person buys and owns and maintains a lot next door to you and pays the taxes on that lot, is it okay to allow him to put some structures that wouldn't otherwise require any variances, merely being accessory to the lot next door? If this was a garage or something, we've run into some issues in the past where we should probably restrict this and say, thou shalt not sell that lot, because we don't want a garage next door as being something someone would purchase independently. But this is, with the court and the shed, it's clearly going to stay common ownership. And if he were to ever try to put a house on it, I'm pretty sure Coastal Resources is going to make him take that basketball court and shed out anyway, because they're going to make him locate any house as far from the coastal feature as possible. So we wouldn't have any problem with any restriction that says, don't sell this separately, or if it's developed with a house, then this shed can't be in front of the house. But I think it otherwise meets all the present criteria. That's really all I have.
All right, thank you. Board, any questions? And Mr. Furell, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I do not.
Pavlakis?
No, I do not.
Ms. Horowitz?
No questions.
Chairman does not have any questions as well. There are no letters from any abutters or objecting parties in the files. I don't know if we have any abutters or interested parties that do want to speak. If you are on a Zoom meeting, please raise your hand. If this is by phone, dial *9. I do not see any. So that being said, Robert Yates is before the board for tax assessors map 48A, lot 72. Petitioner is seeking approval to construct a 120 square foot storage shed on an accessory lot abutting his house lot. The proposed shed on a lot without primary use conforms with all the standard setback regulations and does not require any lot coverage variance. Mr. Board.
Mr. Chairman, the request is minimal at 120 square feet. It meets all of the setbacks. Because the petitioner owns the lot that's abutting, it's the primary residence, he's allowed under the ordinance to use the abutting lot for accessory uses. The basketball court, the batting cage, and the shed are not an excessive use. The shed isn't even going to be visible from the main road. It's screened. So to deny the petitioner the right to use his land, not to a hardship more than a mere inconvenience. I vote to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Furell.
Mr. Chairman, I vote to approve the dimensional variance for the reasons cited by Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis.
I concur with Mr. Furriel. I vote to approve.
Thank you. Ms. Horowitz.
I vote to approve for reasons previously stated.
Thank you. The chairman also votes to approve for reasons previously stated by Mr. Borden. I mean, one just needs to look at that lot with basketball court and batting cages to realize it is an accessory use to the primary property. So I do think to deny amounts to more than a mere. So all set, Mr. Schwell.
Thank you.
All Righty,
everyone.
we're right along. The next item on the agenda is a petition by Patricia Farrier, the tax assessor's map 20, lot 108, seeking a staircase and walkway to the front door. Is Ms. Farrier on? There you go. Just gotta unmute.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, good.
Ms. Farrier,
Yes,
could you give me a full name and address for Barbara, please?
Patricia Faria, 45 Renfrew Avenue, Middletown.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you explain to the board what you'd like to do?
I would like to build a house and it has to be 10 feet high. And so I need a staircase. And so I'd like to put a switchback staircase and a small deck going across the front of the house to enter the front door.
You're really just seeking a 3-foot variance.
3-foot variance.
Yes, a 3-foot variance.
So the lot is vacant right now.
Yes, it is.
So other than that, the entire house will all conform, fit right in the lot. It is an irregularly shaped lot, correct?
Yes, it is.
And try to get to that, so there we go. Whoever that was, bless you.
Bless you.
That was my stepdaughter.
Okay, and really, I'm looking to keep you really can't move the house over either, correct?
No, I moved I know I've got the 10-foot setback on my east side,
Yeah.
but I moved the house over 14 feet so that I wouldn't have to get variance for the switchback stairs.
Right.
Um,
It's just on that side facing Oak Street.
Yes, just that little strip on the north side.
Right, okay. Not excessive lighting. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Borden.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Borden here. I did a great job trying to conform with the lot coverage and petition the house such that you'd have minimal relief for setbacks. My question is, the house does not have a garage, and typically residents would build like a 10 by 12 shed. So have you thought about where you're going to store lawnmowers and shovels and garden equipment?
Well, the house will be 10 feet high, so I was hoping to park my vehicle under the house and hoping to store quite a bit of stuff under the house was my plan, but I don't want to build walls. I want to leave it sort of open.
Okay.
Right, that's right, because you have to build, because you're on the floodplain, correct?
Correct.
All right, okay.
Okay, I'm all set.
And that would necessitate the way the stairs have to go because of the height of the building.
Yes, and I pushed them to one side so that I drive my vehicle under the house on the other side.
Right, okay. Any other questions, Mr. Borden? No, Mr. Furell, any from you?
No, sir, no question.
Pavlakis?
No, I do not have questions.
Ms. Horowitz?
No questions.
Chairman does not have any questions either. There are no letters in the file. Is there any abutters or interested parties that want to speak on this at
Chairman,
all?
we want to go over the special use.
I will, after, yeah.
I don't see any.
No one, okay. So, Ms. Barry, I just have to go over the special use criteria with you, because you're also applying for that. So, if your petition were approved, would it allow adequate space for fire protection?
For fire protection? Yeah. Yes, it would.
Okay. Would it still provide adequate light and air between buildings?
Light between buildings? Excuse me, yes.
Would it alter the character of the neighborhood at all or adversely affect any of your neighbors?
Oh, no, it's going to be a pretty small house, as you can see, and I'm trying to make it real cute, fit right in the neighborhood.
Would it create lot coverage and setbacks less than the average lot coverage and setbacks of adjacent properties?
I believe I meet all the lot coverage. Is that what? And all the other setbacks I do meet except for that front.
Okay, so your answer to that would be no.
Okay, no.
Okay, would it impose a detriment to the public or to your neighbors?
No, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Patricia Farrier is before the board for tax assessor's map 20 lot 108, seeking a special use permit for a substandard lot of record and a 3-foot front yard variance for the purpose of a staircase and narrow deck to the front door of a proposed new residence. Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I approve the special use permit for substandard lot of record. The petitioner has met all the criteria, complies with the ordinance. In regards to the request for the front yard variance of 3 feet, this is, excuse me, an extremely minimal request. Certainly the petitioner has the right to build a home on their land that they own, and this is minimal relief. Considering that the lot is 4,430 square feet, it's amazing that the petitioner came under the 20% coverage on the ordinance. Clearly, the least relief necessary. Relief is being sought is for a staircase and a narrow deck and not for the structure itself. Least relief necessary, clearly a hardship of money more than a mere inconvenience should this be denied. Vote to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Furell.
Mr. Chairman, I vote to approve the special use permit for a substandard lot of record and the dimensional variance for the reasons cited by Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis.
I concur and I vote to approve both applications.
Thank you. Ms. Horowitz.
I vote to approve both applications for reasons previously stated.
Thank you. The chairman votes to approve both the special use permit and the dimensional variance request. I applaud the applicant for trying to go as minimal as is possible and try to conform and meet the ordinance as best they could. So I think to deny amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. So you have been approved.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you. I will.
Next item on the agenda is a petition by Stephen and Ann Perry for tax assessor's map 1 lot 16, a special use permit for substandard lot of record, 15-foot front yard setback, a 4-foot 6-inch side yard setback for the purpose of creating safe access to their home. Are the Perrys on?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Swear to tell the truth?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, could you both individually give your full name and address to Barbara for the record?
Ann Perry, 1277 Anthony Road, Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
And Steve Perry, 1277 Anthony Road in Portsmouth.
Okay, could you explain to the board what you would like to do?
So we purchased this home a couple of months ago, and we've engaged an architect who is actually on the call as well, if there are any technical questions and stuff that may come up. But the staircase right now is a switchback staircase on the exterior of the home with concrete pad underneath it. And we're looking to essentially enclose that and rebuild a staircase that goes up both floors of the house, which the architect has added a dormer essentially on the second floor that helps enclose the staircase that high up.
And that's kind of the extent of it.
Yeah, the drawing you're looking at there shows the street is on the right-hand side of the screen there. So there is a switchback staircase in that upper right corner now. So it would enclose that area with foundation footings and whatnot, and then create a new entry from the street there. And then the staircase goes up 2 flights of stairs. That's the main living area. The house is elevated, so there's a garage under the house. So this is the main floor, and then the same staircase will go up to the second floor as well.
Okay. So, question for you. Is this going to encroach any more than what already exists?
No.
So basically, it's because you're enclosing in, it's the enclosure part.
Correct, yeah. The setback to the property on the right is okay. It's the setback from the street.
And that's to the property line, right? Not, is it to the property line and then there's probably another so many feet to the street?
The front of the house is actually 5 feet back from the street.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this entire neighborhood.
This entire district, I've done 3 houses in this neighborhood, is very tight. It was originally a series of cottages, so all of the abutting neighbors are very close.
Sir?
Yes?
Hold on a minute, I don't even know who you are.
Sorry, I thought I was introduced. Okay.
Okay, could I have your full name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Glenn Fontecchio. I am the architect for the project and was contracted by the Perrys.
Thank you, Mr. Fontecchio. You swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fontecchio.
Okay, so as I started to say, I've done a number of houses on this particular street. Originally, this particular neighborhood was a series of cottages, so every house is very close to the street. This expansion, if you want to call it that, is just the enclosure of the existing access stair to the main level of the house and a covered canopy over the front door. Beyond that, there's no expansion shown here. The other thing that we are showing you, because it is an existing non-conforming lot, is that we wish to reconstruct the roof and put dormers in that roof. But there will be no additional setback impacts brought on by that.
So you're not encroaching any more than the house already encroaches?
Correct.
It's just because you're enclosing the stairs?
Yes.
Okay, I got it now. Mr. Borden, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Furell, do you have any questions?
No, sir, no question.
Pavlakis?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Horowitz? Horowitz? Go? I think she froze. Yeah, all right, well, Mr. Ladika is there as the alternate. Mr. Ladika, I'll have you in on this. Do you have any questions, Mr. Ladika?
No, no questions.
All righty, I'm not quite sure what happened with Sue. All righty, so let me just run through the special use criteria with this. Either the Perrys or your architect can answer this. It's entirely up to you.
We can answer.
Okay, so would this allow adequate space for fire protection if this were granted?
Yes.
Okay, would it provide adequate light and air between buildings?
Yes.
Would it alter the character of the neighborhood or adversely affect any neighboring properties?
No.
Would it create lot coverage and setbacks less than the average lot coverage and setbacks of adjacent properties?
No.
Would it impose a substantial detriment to the public or to immediate neighbors?
No.
Okay, thank you. All righty, I see no letters in the file. I do have to ask for any abutters or interested parties that may want to speak to this. And I don't see anyone.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question.
Yes, Mr. Borden.
Mr. Borden here. I have a question on coverage page. I understand that you're not proposing to increase the footprint at all, but in your lot coverage submission and the petition, under proposed additions, you have house 7 by 12, enclosed stairs, 82 square feet. And then you're subtracting it out, but your existing lot coverage is 47.
I'm having a poor connection, but
Let's do.
Yeah, we got you, Sue. Bill is listening in on this one.
So you're subtracting out 82 square feet, but
okay.
the numbers are the same. It's still 17, 22, and the percentage is the same. I'm curious why the 82 is there.
Because we are, I think it's because we are removing the stairs and adding a foundation enclosed stairway area.
But the footprint is going to remain the same.
Yes.
And the numbers are the same. The 47.2 is the same in both places, and the total proposed square footage is the same in both places.
Yeah.
So
I think I might be able to answer that question. In the existing breakdown, that 4'6" by 12 of 50 square feet is the rear deck stair. That is remaining, and it should have appeared had there been listed on the proposed additions stairs, but that wasn't an item listed there. So it is an exact wash in terms of square footage that is there.
all right, I don't have an issue with it. The numbers didn't add up.
I understand completely.
Okay. So it is time to vote. Stephen Ann Perry before the board, tax assessor's map 1, lot 16, seeking a special use permit for substandard lot of record, and also a 15-foot front yard variance and a 4-foot 6-inch side yard variance for the purpose of enclosing a stairway on their home. Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, before I vote, I would just raise the question, do we need to address the lot coverage? Or because it's already existing, it's a moot point?
I think it's a moot point, to be honest, Mr. Borden.
Okay, I just wanted to dot the i's and cross the t's in case anyone was to raise a question later. In regards to the special use permit, for substandard lot of record, the petitioner has met all the criteria, and I vote to approve. In regards to the front yard variance of 15 feet, it's already existing. The petitioner is not planning on encroaching any further. And in regards to the side yard variance request of 4 feet 6 inches, again, a similar situation. The petitioner is not requesting to encroach any further. I think it's a good idea. It just plain makes sense to enclose it. Could be a safety hazard in the winter to try and go up and down those stairs, 2 stories with ice and snow. It's a reasonable request, and it's the least relief necessary to enjoy the permitted use. To deny would amount to more than a mere inconvenience. To approve.
Thank you. Mr. Furell?
Mr. Chairman, I vote to approve the special use permit for the substandard lot of record. I also vote to approve the front yard and side yard variances for the reasons cited by Mr. Borden.
Thank you. Ms. Pavlakis?
I vote to approve both applications for reasons previously stated.
Thank you. Mr. Ladika?
I Vote to approve both for the reasons previously stated.
Thank you. Chairman votes to approve both the special use permit and the dimensional variance for reasons previously stated by Mr. Borden. So you have been approved.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Sue, are you back with us?
I'm in and out constantly. I'm not getting very good reception, so I'm basically out, but I'm still trying.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking good right now. We can see you and hear you. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. So the next item on the agenda is a petition by Timothy and Anne Marie Corbett for tax assessors map 62 lot 74. And they're seeking a, let's see here, dimensional variance, but I'm trying to see where. Basically, you're looking for dimensional variance to install a 4-foot fence and not a 6-foot fence surrounding the pool. Is that correct? Are the Corbett's on?
Court Chappelle is here for Anne Marie Corbett and Timothy Corbett. I believe she is on, and I believe I also have an architect. With permission of the board, I'll be doing most of the talking, and I'll have both of them available should you have any questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Chappelle.
All right, brief history lesson again. We were here a few months ago, and I was bringing to the board's attention that there was a change in the state building code to which always stated that fences had to be enclosing pools. And in what's called the 2015 International Pool Amendment, which wasn't adopted by Rhode Island in 2018, they said those pools who have an ASTM 1346 certificate, which is a retractable closing electronic cover capable of holding, I think it's in excess of 230 pounds, but it's a safety feature. And what they said was, if you install this safety feature, you no longer need a fence. We came here on a petition that was down at Farmlands, and my client, Anne Marie Corbett, was actually listening to the petition. And that was a unique parcel that had a lot of land and a lot of natural barriers. And I believe Mr. Borden, in approving it, said, I wouldn't approve something like this if it was down in Sandy Point. And my client gasped. And because we were on deck to come in the following month and ask that the state code supersede our ordinance. Instead, Anne Marie went back to the drawing board with our landscape architect, Ray Maiello, who's on the phone, or on the petition as well, and tried to draw this in a way that would more satisfy the board. And if you'd continue to scroll down and be so kind as to get to the picture, I think I can more easily explain it. So that house is merely a block, obviously, and not their house. Their existing house abuts the water, and they were looking to put a pool off the back deck. What they've done now is they've moved that pool a little bit down the hill and taken advantage of the sloping landscaping. They've then proposed what's called an infinity pool, because by sliding it down the hill, it was going to require a large retention wall on the water side. And when you look at that retention wall on the water side, it is a 4-foot solid wall, which qualifies for fence or under our ordinance, but it's not a 6-foot wall, it's 4. It does, however, have what we used to call a moat. And between the moat and the landscape barrier before it, it, I believe, will adequately protect our ordinance, which says we don't want small children or anyone being able to walk into an open pool. So from the infinity side, they proposed, the architects went back to the drawing board and put up a 4-foot wall. It cascades like a waterfall, if you know anything about these infinity pools, into that trench. That trench is shallow. It's just are no architects here. It's has a grate on it so that people can't fall, or kids can't fall through it, and the vegetation before it. The wall and then the rail system on top of the wall in all other places except the stairway now combine to exceed 6 feet. So if you have a 4-foot wall and a 3-foot or a 4-foot fence on top of that wall, the combination is 7 feet of what a small kid or child would have to climb over. If you then look at the north side, which is the stairway, that stairway has a locked gate, which is required under our ordinance. So it would otherwise comply. It just, again, is 4 feet instead of 6 feet. And the purpose of all of the fencing and the reason she wanted to eliminate it in the first place was that the fencing, this is right on the water. You want to be able to stand or sit and look at the view, not obstruct the view, and yet still figure out a way to make this safe from anyone approaching from any sides. So although I still argue that that new ordinance or that new building code supersedes our ordinance and may very well say we don't need any type of fencing, based on what I heard last time, they redesigned for the least relief necessary and are now asking merely for a 4-foot fence around that stairway, a 4-foot solid wall with the moat and vegetation on the infinity side, and then everywhere else the wall and the fence combine to exceed 6 feet under our ordinance. So overall, I think the combination, remember, it is also, we are also installing as a condition the ASME cover. So what you're really now saying is if someone puts this retractable safety cover, we would consider going from a 6-foot requirement to a 4-foot requirement, because the combination of both of them fulfill the ordinance to say that the safety of the children in the neighborhood or a trespasser are going to be met. And I think it's that easy. There's many towns that have eliminated the requirement for a, Massachusetts towns, by the way, that have eliminated the requirement now for a fence at all. And many other towns that only have a 4-foot pool requirement anyway. We have a 6-foot requirement, and I understand why, but it is higher than some. You know, many, you know, for instance, you can have an above ground 4-foot sided pool that doesn't have any more than the 4-foot side, and all we need to do is lock the ladder. So I think when you combine everything here and you look at aesthetically why they're doing it and the view corridors that are being left open, I think it more than meets the intent and requirements of the ordinance. And other than that, if you have any questions, I can explain.
I actually have a question from Mr. Show. Mr. Show, there's a revision to the zoning ordinance in process, correct? Or is
it will be.
It will be. In your opinion, do you think that part of that revision will need to go more in the state code?
Well, talking about building code, so I don't know if that would be changed with a rewrite or if we just take the I believe that amendment to add the 6-foot requirement was done not too long ago.
Okay.
Within the past 10 years, I believe.
All right. Thank you. Questions from the applicant, Mr. Board?
Yes, I just want to get squared away with a couple questions. You mentioned that there was there a national, I don't know if ordinance is the correct word, that stated that, or maybe it was state, that it's acceptable to have 4 feet? Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry. Let me go over that. The building code, which is a national building code, was amended has an entire section on pools and spas. And that section required a 4-foot fence around all spas and pools. In 2015, the national code was amended in section 305 to say that if you had an ASTM 1346 cover, which goes on to say it's a cover that can close electronically and hold, I believe it's 230 pounds, a safety cover, as they call it, then the requirement for a fence has been eliminated. Rhode Island did not accept the change until August of 2018. That's why probably none of us heard of it. And quite frankly, between August of 2018 and August of 2020, not a lot of people were putting in pools where a ton of people are now. That's why I think it's come up more. So the new code suggests that a building inspector can issue a permit without a fence. That doesn't mean your zoning ordinance allows it, and one may supersede the other. But rather than fight about whether there's no fence required or a fence required, I think it's easiest in this petition to say, we're putting in, according to the building code, a safety system that doesn't require a fence. And in exchange for that, we're merely asking your town requirement to go from 6 feet to 4 feet for us. And in many cases, it's really 7 feet combined. But I think it's on that vanishing pool side, it's a 4-foot wall with a moat. That's the least it is anywhere.
Okay. So I have a question about the safety cover. What if, I mean, people are enjoying the day and it's 85 degrees and they go to friends for dinner and they forget to put the cover on? I mean, are there any automatic controls that are going to close the pool with the cover? Or
no, and I think that's a great question, and I think it's last time why we all said maybe maybe that's not a great rule, because even if you have a cover, you can leave it open. But remember, there is no requirement that you have any cover at all, and there's never been a requirement that you have a fence from opening from your sliding glass French doors into your living room down into your pool. So the protection has never been for your guests, really. It's been for neighbors from an outside source entering the area. And from an outside source entering the area, we at least have 4-foot scalable walls or 4-foot and fences in every direction. And again, I remind you, if I have just a 17-foot round pool in my yard that's only 4 feet high, my only requirement is that I lock the ladder, not that I build 6-foot sides all the way around it. So it's just a strange ordinance, and it's strange that we have 6 feet. 10 feet is safer than 4, John, I understand that. But I think generally speaking, we have a safety cover, which we hope is gonna stay locked just as much as we need a gate lock, but I can go home and leave my gate unlocked too. Anybody that wants to trespass into the pool, I think is gonna get there. I really think it's to stop, the purpose of this ordinance is to stop children, to stop someone from falling in inadvertently, or a young child that shouldn't be able to manipulate the system to get in. And I respectfully think trying to cross that moat and climb that 4-foot wall, or trying to climb that wall over that 3-foot guardrail is at least as difficult in all cases as your basic 6-foot chain link fence, which we wouldn't need any relief for at all. But you're right, you can leave it open. There's no doubt about that.
Mr. Furell, do you have any questions?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, Ms. Pavlakis?
Yes, I do. Today I was reading the ordinances of Rhode Island, and one of the rules said that you have to have automatically locking gates. Is that true, Court?
Well, the building inspector, when you put in any pool, has from mainly your doors inside. So your doors from inside, they recognize you might not have a 6-foot fence in that direction, because many people have pools that are accessible from their house without crossing a fence. And when that happens, you need those mandatory locks and safety devices, horns or sirens on your doors.
Okay, so that you really can't, you're not supposed to forget to lock the gate. The gate is supposed to lock automatically. Is that?
Yes. And Gareth and the building department have to approve all gates, locks, and the doors that go into your house and whether they need alarms.
Okay,
Hey, Kathleen?
I'm done. Yep.
All right. Sue? Okay, Mr. Ladika?
I missed most of this, but I can read the drawings, and so I don't have any questions.
Okay. All righty. Chairman doesn't have any questions either. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Chappelle?
No, just if you want to hear from the architect on the pains he took to try to get that at least 4 and 3 combination on all of this and maintain the view for neighbors as well as them in seated positions on their deck.
I don't. No, I think we're good, Mr. Chappelle.
Thank you.
All right, so there are no letters in the file. Are there any butters interested parties out there that do want to speak to this?
Yep, there's one. It's Catherine, is it Terrell? There are two. We'll have Kathleen Terrell.
Kathleen Terrell, can you hear us? Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah, okay, let's see, it's Gretchen.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, we have Kathleen.
Is that Kathleen?
Yes, it's
Kathleen, could you give your full name and address, please?
Kathleen Terrell, 189 Fisher Circle, Portsmouth.
Okay, Kathleen, what would you like to tell the board?
I think that as an abutter, I think 4 feet is setting a dangerous precedent. I think a kid could climb up that very easily, especially through the stone. And I think we have a reason that we have 6 feet requirements for pools. And I don't think that we should change that.
All righty, thank you very much. Gretchen
Petrie.
Gretchen Petrie, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, could you give your full name and address, please, for the board?
Rob Petrie, 153 Fisher Circle.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Petrie.
Scroll down on that, the picture of the pool. So my question is this. So, I mean, that's a great rendition and so forth. And like Kathy was saying, so I'm looking at, so when we all put our pools in, we all had to do the 6 foot. And, I agree with the doors, the internal doors with the chimes and the locks. We have handles that had to exceed so many inches for children, the gates to be locked. All this is for insurance purposes. As far as the town, when you look at the ordinances and you say they're 6 feet, if this was brought up a month or 2 months ago, what has been done since then? Have you guys gotten together and looked at all the new technology? What's out there? Looking at this rendition, you've got the moat. Whether or not the moat covers up, if I was a 5-year-old kid or whatever it was, and I don't know, I'm walking through the bushes, and I hit my head on the wall and I fell in the moat. Like, what is that? I mean, they talk about kids drowning in a pool of water. I mean, I'm just looking at the picture. Again, the corners of the pool, like those are 4 feet. If I climbed up a 4-foot wall, I mean, granted, those fences add up to what you say is another 3. I know it's graded, whether or not it starts to grade, maybe it's 4 feet plus your 3 feet is 7 feet. I don't really, whatever that adds up to be truly adds up to be. But if I was to crawl up on the corner over there on the left on the 4 foot, you don't think that I can jump over the corner there? I mean, whether or not that 3 foot fence is extended out to the end of that wall, so you don't get up on that 4 and go in the corner. A 4 foot fence, you know, if you're telling me a 4 foot fence is what everybody's doing these days, then you guys need to change the ordinance, or you guys need to get together and figure this out. I mean, I don't understand, you know, why we're in this predicament. If it's a 6 foot fence, it's a 6 foot fence. If this guy that's representing Marie Ann or Anne Marie is you know, has got new rules and regulations out there, and we're not looking at them, like what's going on? So looking at, if you could, do you have a cursor? Who's got the cursor? So go down on the corner, go to the right, go to the right, go to the left. No, right. No, go to the right a little more. Just right there. Go up about a hair. Right there. What is that? So jump up on the wall. Jump up on the wall, and then jump in a pool. See, you know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, if that fence, you need to extend that fence over to the end if you're truly gonna keep somebody from jumping in. You get it? But I'm not the architect. I can't draw. I can do stick figures, but to me that's a weak spot. And the moat right there, I mean we all talk about children drowning in a puddle of water, and I'm not out to be a bad guy. I'm just saying, you know, how deep is that moat? And then is 4 feet, is that something that you guys considered about changing? Like that 4 feet down on the patio, can you know, is 4 feet okay? Can we jump, is 4 feet good? You know, it's just, there's some areas of vulnerability. It's a great plan, don't get me wrong. I mean, we all want to, I mean, when you talk about the view, when the lawyer or whatever's talking about the view, we all want a view. You don't think that I want a view? You don't think, I mean, for everybody across the street from me, from whether or not it's that house or the house next door, you know, I mean, my view is somewhat gone now, but that's fine. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm not, but it's okay. It's not my place. But as far as this goes, you know, whether or not I have my kids or my grandkids are running around, everybody's playing hide and seek, going out to the beach, and all of a sudden, you know, kids will be kids. But it's just something that you guys need to take on. And the responsibility is with you guys and Marie Ann's insurance or what have you. Anne Marie, I'm sorry, I keep saying, I go backwards. But you guys, you know, you guys are held to this as well. So I just want you to know that. So I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Ray Maiello.
Ray Maiello. Mr. Maiello, are you there?
Yes. That's our architect, Mr. Knott.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Mr. Maiello.
I just wanted to.
Oh.
We lost you.
Hold on.
Hang on.
Okay. Am I here now?
Yeah, Mr. Maiello, can we have your name and address, please, for Barbara?
Sure. Ray Maiello, 15 Ridgeland Road, Smithfield, Rhode Island. I'm the landscape architect.
Okay, and you swear to tell the truth?
Yes. I just wanted to point out that the where that question came up about the wall at the south end of the pool, that's 4 feet tall there. The vegetation in that rendering might make it look like it's shorter, but that wall is 4 feet tall. And I also wanted to point out that the trough will have a grate that will be installed across it at water level, so a child cannot get in the trough.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Why didn't you carry the grate all the way across the top of the infinity pool? The water can still cascade over, so why not continue that 4 foot fencing straight across that whole front of that pool? Or 3 foot fence?
Because the wall's over 4 feet tall.
The view.
Right? Yeah. Okay, I got that, but so's the wall on the other parts, and you put, you know, 3 foot fencing above that. Why not across that, where the water cascades over, where the moat is? Why not above there?
Because there's a 4 foot wall right at the vanishing edge.
You're not answering my question. I see there's a 4-foot wall there, but there are 4-foot walls, you know, over to the right of that picture that you've got fencing above, correct?
Correct.
Well, why not carry that fencing all the way around the entire pool?
The water.
A fence on top of the vanishing edge, you're asking?
Yes,
Yes.
the water can still cascade over that.
I think you're correct that the water can cascade over that, but the whole nature of the vanishing pools are such that
Is aesthetics.
you can see it from the water. Also, if you put a grate on that, you may have people walking on that edge or trying to walk on that edge, and that's not an edge where you want people. That I know it's drawn like it looks like you walk on it, but those are kind of rounded, wet edges. You don't want anybody out there. I don't want to propose it, but I think before you did that, would you step down to grade right in front of that vegetation and put a 6-foot there that you, because of the topography, is almost lower? It's just,
Also,
things are possible, but I think sometimes you're putting up fences to stop what can't really happen. I mean, again, a child's got to go through vegetation, got to be trespassing, got to go across this grated moat, got to scale a 4-foot. We're not talking about saving the lives of teenagers. Teenagers are going over everything we did, and most of us probably did it as a kid. We're really talking about saving and protecting ourselves from children that would be accidentally trying to get into water in a pool. Now, I think a better question for Ray is where the gentleman points out that corner looks like a weak spot. I know on the north side, I see that railing come out to the point. Can that railing go out to the point on the south side? So that it would be a little more difficult for someone coming up the side that is ramped?
it could go out to the end of the wall. I also want to point out that in order for the auto cover to work, it needs to run along the top of the vanishing edge. So the idea of putting anything on top of the vanishing edge does not work.
Okay, well, here's the other thing about the auto cover is unlike the petition spell that we had last time where we had a lot of information about the pool cover, we have zero information on what's proposed on this particular pool.
Let me, I shouldn't assume that we remembered the last one. So Ray, are you familiar with the 2015 International Pool and Spa Code?
Yes, I am.
And is it fair to say that that pool and spa code required fencing around all residential pools prior to its amendment?
Correct.
All right. And then in section 305, there was an amendment that stated in certain circumstances, the National Building Code, as adopted by Rhode Island in 2018, would no longer require fencing around pools if they were equipped in a certain way, correct?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the ASTM F1346 criteria?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that is and what this pool cover does and what makes it safe and the cost and how it's installed?
Mr. Spell, can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
I have no idea what pool cover he's talking about. I don't have any information on it. I don't believe any other board member has.
Well, that's what he's about to tell you what that is.
Right, he's gonna tell me what it is, but I could tell you about a car sitting in a parking lot, but unless you see the car, you don't know all the bells and whistles. Last time, at the other pool you proposed, we had all the information for the cover.
Actually, you had what I
This time,
sent.
I have somebody explain it to me, but I don't have anything to see it with my own eyes, nor see what it can and can't do.
Actually, there weren't any pictures. What there was the printout of the ASTM certificate, which just again says that it has to support certain weights and be capable of automatic open and closing. They can be done. The building code doesn't say that you're going to use the Honda cover or the Toyota cover. It says a cover that is certified nationally under the ASTM F criteria. Some of those are going to roll out from the vertical end of a pool. some of those are gonna run longitudinally along the pool. This one, will explain where it's, but first and foremost, that it meets the national criteria for safety, and second, where it's designed to be implemented and how it will open and shut. But, you know, it seems to me, whether a car has airbags is what's important, not whether you have a picture of the airbags. It's whether it meets the national safety requirements to kick in this ordinance. And again, I thought I was going out of our way to say, we're not trying to take a building code and shove it down the throat of the town because they've said no fences are required. We went back and drew and said, we're putting a 4-foot fence, which is all most towns require anyway. I'm a little, I didn't think this was going to be as concerning, quite frankly. But I would like to at least let him testify that the cover that's going on, how it's located, and how it opens and shuts, and the safety features attached to it.
Chappelle, this is what we're gonna do. Because you want to present more testimony, I've got an abutter that wants to speak again, and I would allow any abutters to speak again after this testimony is given. Therefore, it is the witching hour. So at this point, I'm going to recommend we continue this to next month along with the next 2 petitions, because I'm not going to sit here for another 15 to 20 minutes going back and forth. So
that's always your prerogative.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, if they're going to come back, I'd just like to raise one of my concerns that they may be able to address when they come back and not surprise them when they come back.
Thank you.
I could just continue testimony for 2 minutes.
Absolutely, Mr. Borden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So here's my question. I understand the abutters' concerns, and they're valid concerns. And my question would be, since the topography is such that the land slopes down anyway, is it possible to change the grade so instead of that being a 4-foot high wall, it could possibly be a 5 or 6 foot wall? That's one question. And the other question would be, is it possible to plant some, I don't know, trees or shrubs, not that they're going to block the view, but make it even harder for a child to even get to that retention wall? Just 2 questions for food for thought.
I understand those, and we'll address the landscaping in front of it and whether or not that wall topography would allow that wall to be higher.
And then the other point would be, I believe, Mrs. Chappelle, you brought it up earlier in regards to the south end of extending that fence. So, I mean, to the abutter's point, a child somehow gets to that south corner and climb up the 4 feet and boom. Another thing to consider is possibly reconfiguring that 3-foot section of fence where it meets the stone wall. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty, so we will continue the petition of Timothy and Anne Marie Corbett to our regularly scheduled meeting of September 17th. We will also continue the petition of William Breyer for tax assessors map 38 lot 16. That's the proposed gunsmith shop on High Point Ave. And also the petition of Mark Smith of 23 Cove Street, which is the request to relocate his shed or have a shed on his side yard, not in the rear yard, which is allowed. Could I have a motion to continue those 3 petitions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we continue those 3 petitions to our regularly scheduled meeting on September 17th.
Could I have a second, please?
I second it. Kathy speaking.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right, good
Thank
night.
you.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Borden has made a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second?
Second, Kathy speaking.
Kathy, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one. Thank you all.
Good night.
Talk to you next month.
Good night.
Ta-ta for now.
Yes, Mike.